for it. Yep.
Alrighty, everybody here at Westchester University, how are you? My name is Justin Brown. I'm here with my co-host.
Leah Paulson.
And today we have another special speaker for you as part of the Residence Life Speaker Series. Her name is Terri Lomax. Everybody say hey to Terri. Terri, how you doing?
Hey, y'all. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I'm on fire today. I'm so excited to be here.
That's great. Well, we're happy to have you here. Terri Lomax is a nationally recognized blogger, speaker, brand strategist, just amongst some of the things that she does. She's dedicated to empowering youth and women to overcome adversity. Her longtime desire to help others was birthed from a place of hurt and pain. As a child, her resilience enabled her to overcome physical attributes and defy statistics about children with incarcerated parents. In an effort to give back to her community, Terri founded Mocha Girls, which she's going to tell us about. Mocha Girls Pit Stop, a personal development blog for women of color that empowers them to make peace with their past, pursue their goals, all while becoming their best selves. She's here to talk to you today about a multitude of different things. We're going to let her take it over. Terri, thank you again for joining us.
Of course, you're so welcome. I do want to ask Justin and Leah, is there any way that I can get on Facebook and see comments and see the students' feedback? Is that possible?
Yeah, so you can watch the feed from Facebook if you want, or if someone has a question, we'll just let you know. That's normally what we do. Just we're watching both screens, so we could do both. Or if you want to do it, that's fine. No problems.
That'd be awesome. If you guys want to share the questions, I just want to see anything that comes through so I can kind of vibe with the students live and in action.
We can definitely share that.
Do
we give you, and Erica's computer is a little wacky, so she went off, but she'll be coming right back. You might need access to share screen, right?
Yes, I may need access to share screen. I do have some slides for us today.
All right, Leah, you're able to give it to her?
I just fixed it.
Perfect. Then it sounds like we're in good space.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to go ahead and go to Facebook now. Should I go to your page or where should I go? Just to make sure I can see.
It's currently on our page.
Okay.
I can share it to mine since we're friends on Facebook, however way you want to look at it.
Okay, perfect. Let me just make sure I'm in the room, I'm in the right space. And then I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. And you know what, Justin, I wonder if maybe you can just share it with me and that might make it easier. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I did. I just tagged you in it. So you should be able to, you should have gotten that.
Perfect. All right. I'm gonna make sure I'm muted here so we don't get any double feedback there. Cool. All right. Let me go ahead and share and let's dive on in to some of the content. So I do want to state that my hope is that the session will be highly interactive. I do have some content here, but I love to feed off the energy of those that are in the room. So if you are tuning in live right now, drop your name and let's do your favorite Netflix series or favorite show online, just so I can see who's in the space. So you can do that on Facebook. And the goal today is to talk a bit about how to find your passion and develop the brand of you. But I'm all about going with the energy. So if something comes up and folks want to talk about something else, or we're kind of led in a different direction, that is a-okay. I'm down to do that as well. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in. You all can see my slides. Is that right? Awesome.
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you so much. Thank you also for the great introduction, Justin. I really appreciate that. And there's one part of the introduction that I didn't share with you all. And yes, my name is Terri Lomax. I'm the speaker and I do all these things, but also according to statistics, I should have been a high school dropout. I should have been a teen mom. I should have been an alcoholic. I should have been a drug addict. I should have been all these things according to statistics, but I'm not. And I'm here today and I can't wait to share with you how I was able to defy the statistics and how we all can, right? Because I may not know you, I may not know your story, but I'm willing to guarantee that whoever's tuning in, you have faced some type of adversity and there is a statistic out there that is trying to attach itself to you. So we're just gonna throw the statistics over there, okay? We're not even gonna feed into them today. So I wanna also let you know that I'm not here to motivate you. I'm not here to preach to you. I really want this to be a conversation. I really want us to have a chat about, I want to learn more about you, right? Justin told you a bit about me, but I want to learn more about you, your story, where you come from and all that good stuff, okay? So I want to start off by showing you this picture here. This is a picture here on the left of me that was taken years ago when I was in high school in the 1-bedroom shelter that my family of 7 lived in. And the picture on the right is a picture of me speaking at CMX Summit, which is a community manager conference in Portland, Oregon, a few years ago. And so I bring this picture up because I really do believe that whatever we believe in our mind, we can make a reality, right? And it's crazy because if someone were to go back and tell this little girl on the left that I would be living in Silicon Valley and running a global onboarding program at a tech company in Silicon Valley, I would have laughed. Like my mind would have been blown. I would not have believed them. And so today I really want us to lean into the possibility. Today I want us to forget anything that, family may have shared with us that wasn't encouraging, forget any statistics that may have been attached to us and what happened to us and who we are and where we come from. And I want us to really lean into the world of possibilities, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Justin, I want to check in with you. Or did you see any feedback on your end so far? Because I want to ask a few questions.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
And if
okay,
I do,
no.
I'm just gonna go ahead and jump in and I'll let you know. And
That's cool.
If you want feedback from Leah and I, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Yep, I was gonna say you and Leah, you are my audience right now. And when folks tune in, they can chat, but I would love to lean into you all, if that's fine, since we're all here together. Is that cool with you?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Okay, cool. So before we get started, I want to share some housekeeping tips or rules that I like to just use to ground us for our conversation today. So whether you're catching the replay or whether you're tuning in live, I just want us to ground ourselves with these housekeeping tips. So the first one, I actually want you and Leah, if this is possible, if you all can take yourselves off mute, and I want you to repeat after me. This is a conversation.
This is a conversation.
This is a conversation.
Yes, not a presentation.
Not a presentation.
Not a presentation.
That's right. That's right. And if you are watching live, I want you to go onto Facebook and I want you to literally put the same thing. This is a conversation. Just type that in for us so I can like your feedback. I'm watching. I have the screen up here. And the reason I say that is because I know we're on Zoom. I get it. We're all in our virtual spaces because of the state of the world. But I want you to realize that this is a conversation. This isn't just a one-way thing where I'm just going to be talking at you for the next hour or so. This is a conversation. I want to get your feedback. I want us to converse. I want us to be in this space together. And I would just want to hear from you. Okay, so that's really important. Number two,
we have 9 people watching. So feel free to jump in. Feel free to talk with us. That's what we're here for.
I love it. I love it. Yes. To our 9 people tuning in, share your name too. Share your name in the comments so that we can vibe together and I have a better idea of who we're chatting with. I'm checking out the comments here. And so the next housekeeping tip that I have for us is we're going to have fun today. All right. Yes, we may talk about some things that will bring up certain emotions for us. But I think it's really important for us to have a good time and to have fun, because who doesn't like to have fun, y'all? Everything doesn't have to be serious. I want us to have a good time, all right? And number 3, I want to check in with you to see, are there any housekeeping tips or ground rules that you want to add into our conversation? Leah and Justin, do you have anything based on previous conversations or other guests that you've had?
Yeah, I would love to hear about the background, how you got into this, but I really want, at least for me, I'm really interested in hearing about how you can take a small brand and just blow it up and make it your own thing. I think a lot of our students are really just trying to make their own expertise in whatever their passions are in or whatever they're trying to work towards. And I think a lot of our students have small businesses or little things they're trying to get off the ground. And I would love to hear more about your strategies and helping to blow those things up and get them off the ground.
I love it. I love it. What about you, Leah? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I love what you said about just in one of the last slides or two, harnessing your passion. Because I attended a conference a few months ago, and they did this Venn diagram about, it was what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what you absolutely love to do. And a lot of people get stuck in what they're good at and what they can get paid for, but they don't love what they do. So in order, even with your doing brand strategy and everything, you can't sell something or sell yourself if you're not passionate about it. So I love that aspect of what you do.
Yes, I love it. I'm so happy you shared that. And if I'm looking down, I'm actually taking notes so that I can make sure I capture your feedback to make sure that we do cover these points. So I appreciate that. And I do, let's see, I want to double check to see if I saw a notification. Okay, cool. I see we still have some live viewers. And then as far as the intention, so when it comes to the intention, whenever I do a presentation like this or have a conversation like this, right, because it's not a presentation, I really want to set an intention, because if you think about it, right, we're going to be together for the next hour or so. And if you were to hop into your car, get in there, you got your GPS up, but you don't put an address in, where are you going to end up, right? Wherever. You might end up down the street. You might end up following
Not where you want to
traffic and
be.
just kind of going with the flow. Not where you want to be, right? And so I really want us all, whoever's watching, whether you're tuning into the replay, whether you are tuning in live, I want you to really just sit with yourself and think, what do I want to gain out of the session today? Like, if there were, we're going to go right to our next slide here. If there were no limitations, what do you want to get out of the session today? And what I want you to do when you think about that, I want you to share this on our community whiteboard. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share that link with you in the chat here, Justin. And I can also share it on Facebook too in your comment as well. I'll go ahead and.
Yeah, I'm sharing it there too.
Perfect. So just share on that whiteboard. If there were no limitations, what do I want to walk away with today? I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to write my feedback there as well. And we'll wait a couple minutes and then we'll go ahead and move on. And this is a judge-free zone, so don't judge my handwriting. We're not judging anyone right now.
Terry, do people have to have a username and a login?
They shouldn't. I think Leah just hopped in there. Did you need a login for this, Leah?
Yeah, I could just like sign in. I was signed into my Gmail, so it just went straight through.
Okay. Okay, it went straight through. So I was already logged in, so it didn't prompt me to log in.
With Google.
Okay.
I'll log in with Google, no problem.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Justin.
I'm in there. Oh, we're writing on the same thing. Okay, I'm sorry.
I think, okay, cool. I was like, wait, what does this say? Okay, so we have success, we have connections, we have passion. I see something else coming up. I'm thinking it's going to say inspiration based on what I see there. And you know what? Let me go ahead and bring this down so you all can see as well. Got a nice little board going on here. All right. Looking good. We have hope. And I see one more I'm going to read. Free. Ooh, is that freedom? I love it. Freedom. Yes. Thank you for the feedback. This is so amazing. I'm going to use this to guide our session as well. So let me go ahead and just move our whiteboard over and we'll jump right back in. So Justin, I would actually love to transition and we can sort of make this like an interview style. I'll share a bit of my story and then I want to dive into some of the points that you and Leah shared. And so
Absolutely.
When it comes, as far as the background, so when I was in grad school, I was in this space where I had just graduated from undergrad. I went to Kutztown University in Pennsylvania. Whoop, whoop to the Poshy State Schools.
You're a Golden Bear.
Went to
Kutztown. Look at that.
Golden Bear, that's right, Kutztown, Golden Bear. So I went to Kutztown and I graduated and I ended up deciding to go to Salisbury University. And the reason I decided to go to Salisbury was one, I became an RA at Kutztown. And I was like, okay, one, I don't come from money. No one saved any money for me to go to college. I want to get this master's degree, so I would love for the school to pay for it. That was one reason, right? I was like, I want to be in this residence life program so that I can pay for grad school. The second was because I just wanted to, develop myself, and I really wanted to get a master's degree. I thought I wanted to get my MBA, but I ended up deciding to pursue a degree in conflict resolution. So I'm at Salisbury University, and I literally pack up my stuff. I was a conference services representative at Kutztown. And after that summer of graduation, I packed up my little car. I had a little white Intrigue, Oldsmobile Intrigue, little raggedy car. And I packed up all my stuff and I drove a couple hours to Maryland. And I remember getting there and I was just like, it was like a breath of fresh air for me because it was the first time in life for me when I was really living on my own in a sense of I didn't have roommates. I didn't have, family with me. It was just me and me. And I had this realization where I sat with myself and I remember unpacking my room and I was just sitting there and I was like, dang, I did everything my mentors and advisors told me to do. I went to school, I got good grades, I got a good job, but I still feel empty. And I was just so mind blown because I'm like, how did I do all the things that they drilled into my head all these years? I did all the things. And I was just like, this doesn't even feel right. Like, it doesn't feel like this is what I was waiting for all this time. And so as I began to be with myself, I kind of called the period of grad school, that 2-year period of me dating myself, because it was the first time that it was just me and me. I couldn't avoid myself. It was just me in the mirror. And I had to deal with all the stuff that I had been through, all the stuff that came up for me. And during that period, I went to therapy and all those things. But the one thing I realized is that I was still very broken. And a lot of the childhood trauma that I experienced, that came up. And so what I said was, you know what, I want to create something. There isn't a space right now, from what I can see, where there are women that look like me that are talking about the real deal, like the stuff behind the scenes, behind the makeup, right? Behind the outfits, behind all that. They weren't talking about struggling with low self-esteem and depression, suicidal ideations and unworthiness and stuff like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and just stop sharing for right now. And so I began to think about ways that I could contribute. I was like, okay, I don't see these spaces. So instead of complaining about the lack of spaces out there and saying, oh, you know, the man did this to me and we don't have spaces, I was like, you know what, let me create something. So I went on to my Google's. Google's my BFF. Went to Google. I ended up looking up how to start a blog. And I created the Mocha Girls Pit Stop blog, which was a space where women of color could refuel on motivation and ignite their lives. I had no idea what I was doing. I literally taught myself everything from YouTube and Google and enrolling in online courses. But what I noticed is that I had a personal need, but I also found a void in the world, and I kind of brought that together. And that's like one of the keys of branding, right? Is thinking about what are my skills and interests, and where does that intersect with a need in the world? And so I had the Mocha Girls Pit Stop blog for about 7 years and connected with women across the globe and highlighted them and shared their stories and all that good stuff. So I want to take a quick pause to see if anything came up for you, if there were any questions, and then we can dive in a bit deeper.
I just loved how you were like, I don't see this, so instead of complaining about it, I'm gonna make it happen. I think a lot of people make excuses for why things aren't out there, and I think that you saw a need not only for yourself, but it probably helped and impacted a lot of other people that you weren't even expecting, who weren't even in that space yet because the space wasn't created. So I think that we all have things that we can complain about, but if you can do something about it, or if you can go and create that space to create other spaces, then I think that that is something that we should definitely do. So I agree with that. I think Erica's jumping back in here. So
Hey Erica.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yay.
We're just starting, so you're in good shape.
I don't know what happened.
shape.
My computer just crashed out.
Technology. Good. How are you, Erica?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So we were just talking about when there is a lack of, when there's a void or there's a lack of something that you're desiring, how it's okay to go out and create that. And this is for students too. Like, I was in grad school at the time, I was in my early 20s. And I mean, we have teenagers and kids that are out here making an impact in the world, especially online, right, using social media. And so I had the blog for 7 years. Last year, I actually retired the blog. But really quick, before we dive into the next phase of the journey and the other things, I really want to touch on the branding. And what I would love to do, I'd love to use my whiteboard, y'all. I got a whiteboard and I'm like, it's here. I might as well use it. So let's go ahead and see if we can make this work. And I want this to be an interactive activity. So if you can actually think about yourself when we do this activity, this would be really helpful for you. And what we just talked about, even though you may not be able to see me, you should still be able to hear me. What we just talked about is the fact that when it comes to, and can you all let me know if this is, if the writing is backwards? If it is, I'll just throw the whiteboard.
Zoom does a mirror.
Oh,
from what
good.
I've seen. So go ahead and just write your name. We can just test it.
I did an Instagram live and I was like, oh,
Facebook doesn't do it, but Zoom does a backwards compatibility.
Oh, cool. Okay, so it's good.
So
you guys can see clearly.
It is perfect. It is not backwards.
Perfect. Okay. So
see,
I'm
we're
just gonna say
we're all learning. We're all
learning together, right? And so what I want you to do is I want you to think about, pink is one of my favorite colors, so we're gonna use pink first. I want you to think about, what are your skills and interests? And the thing about this is, right now we're going to put the modesty in the back pocket, Sometimes you may even have to text a friend or call your family to see like what comes up for them, for you, because sometimes I know for me, it was very difficult for me to see myself in my own journey. So I really relied on the feedback of my friends. And I noticed that there were some common themes that kind of led me to my purpose over the years, right? So I'm like such a nerd, y'all. I have this accomplishments binder where I would store thank you cards and notes and recommendations from my teachers. And I noticed that there was a theme of inspiration. Like people always, I didn't feel like I was inspiring anybody. I was like, I don't even know who I am. I barely like myself. But the common themes that I heard were people were like, oh, you're so inspiring. I'm like, really? I'm inspiring? But let's make sure I can spell this correctly. You know what? I have trouble I would be such a bad teacher. I have such trouble speaking and writing at the same time. So I'm going to take a moment to make sure my spelling is on point. Boom. Okay. Inspiring. They would say things. I would also think about, what advice do people always ask me for, right? Like, are people always coming to me asking for advice about, I don't know, about relationships, right? So think about what are people coming to you for advice for? Think about what transferable skills have you learned from different jobs or from your family? Me personally, I grew up around a lot of, I will say, I grew up around difficult people. And so I've developed a lot of patience over the years, okay? Patience is one of my superpowers, depending on the day. But I will put patience over here, right? And just different skills and interests and see where they connect. We're going to move on to the next part here. Once you flesh this out with all of your skills and interests, we want to then think about what does the world need? Because at the end of the day, when you have a brand, when you have a business, you're in the business of helping people do something, right? Zoom is in the business of helping us connect virtually in this capacity, right? So when you think about where is the need in the world, your goal here is to see where does the need in the world correlate or overlap with my skills and interests. Because sometimes, I have a cousin who's a great artist. And if art is your passion and you love to do art, that's beautiful. But if you don't see where it corresponds with a need, this might be the thing that you're passionate about. It might be that thing that refuels you and gives you energy, but it may not be that branding or business idea. Although there are artists that have found that connection, it's something that you would have to build, right? You would have to go out and have conversations and ask folks like, is there a connection here? Is there a need for people to have more art? And if so, that might move into the middle for you. So I think just understanding where is that connection. Let's talk a little bit about some of the needs in the world right now, because we have a lot of needs, okay? We need leadership. Like we just need leadership in general, especially in our country, right? Like good, solid leadership we can depend on. We need more empathy in the world, right? Right now, I'm going to put in my intersection point that people want to learn how to podcast. That's something that I do. It's something that I have. I teach people how to do that. And because we're in this state of the world, this is an overlap for me. So this might be a branding or business opportunity for me because there's the overlap, right? There are more people that want to start online businesses. So that's the need, but then also it correlates with my skills and interests, right? So that's just a little activity that I want you to do to really flesh out what could my brand be, right? You might have questions about what could my brand be? I don't even know what I could do. That's a good place to start, is getting clear on what are my skills and interests and where do they connect with the need in the world. I'm going to get myself together over here. Don't mind me, y'all. And feel free to ask any questions or share any feedback about that activity.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's something that people probably should be doing every 6 months or at least once a year as they're revisiting new things that they're coming up with, new skills, sharpening them, creating objectives to move forward in trying to achieve new goals. I think it's great. Where did you actually get this activity?
That's a good point too, Justin. You know what's funny? I read so much and I take in so much content. I don't even know. I don't remember where I even got it from. I did this recently for some of my podcasting students and then on Instagram Live, but I probably picked it up somewhere or read it somewhere, but I literally don't even know. So anyone feel free to just repurpose this activity and use it. Yep. And so the other point, let's see, I want to go back to something that you shared. We talked a bit about background. And then Justin, one thing that you brought up is like how I got into this. I want to lean into that more so that I can make sure I answer any questions around that. So feel free to just tell me what you were thinking around that question, and then we can dive in a bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched upon it. You saw some needs, you saw some things. maybe we move towards the branding aspect of it. So like, what do you see as a need for branding? Like, how did that become something you got skilled in? And how do you help individuals have a wider reach with their product or their service?
Yes, great question there. Great question. So when it comes to branding, the one thing that I've learned over the years is that many of us, we already have a brand, like we are a brand. And when you think about it, when you think about, like if you were to ask folks that what 3 words would you use to describe me? That's pretty much your brand. And the thing about it is that the scary part is that oftentimes when we get that feedback, and this can be your next activity, right? Text your friends right now and just say, hey, what 3 words would you use to describe me? Text your mentor, text your parents. I mean, text people that you know. Do it right now. Yeah. Do it right now. And let's see what comes up. I'll text some folks too. I'm going to go ahead and text my sibling group chat. We'll all do it together. So what 3 words would you use to describe me? And you can even put it on your status. I would say be mindful of who you reach out to, because you want to make sure that you're inviting positive, supportive energy in. You don't want someone to say, well, you're an a-hole or something, because you know how some people are, they get a little crazy. You want to be mindful of who you're inviting into, like pour into you, if that makes sense. All right. And so once we get those words, it should be interesting, right? To see what comes up, and feel free if you get feedback and folks are highly responsive, feel free to share that feedback. But the thing about it is oftentimes.
Yeah, I'm gonna share mine when it comes in. I text 4
okay.
people.
Oh, good. 4 people.
I text 4 people. So
yes, I can't wait to hear your feedback.
One of them might be biased. One of them's my wife. So, but I'm sure she'll be honest.
Yes, I should have texted my husband that too. I think he might be watching, but no, that's good. I can't wait. When you get the feedback, please let me know.
And of course, she's the first person to respond back.
What did she say?
She said, hardworking, provider, confident, loving, caring. Oh, she's biased. She's biased.
Drop the mic. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Drops the mic. There we go. We're done, everyone. Justin just got that bomb feedback. We're done. So when you think about the branding feedback, right, or the feedback that you get from folks, the scary part is that oftentimes, we don't control the narrative, right? So this is what people think of me. Okay, cool. That's what they think, but it doesn't have to be, right? You can actually be a bit more strategic about what comes to mind when people think of you. And this is one of the branding activities I did years ago when I was trying to get really clear on who am I? What do I want to do in the world? How do I want people to see me? And so the question I had to ask myself was, what 3 words do I want people to associate with me, right? Instead of just like what comes to mind when you think of me, what do I want people to associate with me? And so a few of the words that come to mind for me, for my brand, would be inspiring, right? I want to inspire people in all the work that I do. Inspiring, I would say also valuable. I don't like to be one of those people that just like talks just to be talking. I want to make sure we have an end goal and I'm giving some type of value, right? So I would say valuable. And then number 3, I would say is non-judgmental. I think that's something like a vibe and an energy that I exude, or I would hope to exude. And now that I have clarity on my 3 words, now I can strategically go out into the world and invite that energy back in, right? So if you go to my Instagram, today I posted, I was just like doing a meditation this morning, preparing for this conversation and just mapping out the day in my mind using visualization. And something just came through for me during meditation. I posted it online, and it was just very genuine and authentic. And it's getting a lot of feedback, right? It's getting a lot of traction because it just connects with people on a deep level. And basically what I said in that post on Instagram was that when I was going through my meditation this morning, I have journals, y'all, from like 15 and almost 20 years ago, these journals. And so I was reading through a journal and doing my meditation. You too, Justin?
No. I got another one.
You got feedback? What'd you get?
This is from a student staff member. Mm-hmm. He said, determined, energetic, and germophobic.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
That is the brand of Justin, right? So we're getting when you get that feedback, I would actually put it on, if you have a whiteboard, put it on your whiteboard, but put it on a notebook and circle the words that you want to continue to bring into you, right? The words that you want to exude from you as you share content, right? As you build your brand, and that will become the brand that you can strategically position yourself for, right? And so, oh, Justin, where was I going right before that? I was trying to remember.
I'm so sorry. I did not.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
We're still talking about brands, growing brands, how you got into it.
Yes.
Your interest and you helping other individuals with that.
It's going to come back. Erica, do you remember? Oh, it was okay, here we go. It was the meditation. It was the meditation and the journal. There we go.
Yes,
I was
because
like,
you asked me if I did it too. And I was like,
yes. You're like, oh, no, not really. But so the journal, right? So I went through the journal and basically I looked at a post. It was literally 12 years ago this month. So it was like May 12 years ago. And I was writing about just how sad I was and how I had like less than $100 in all of the bank accounts that I had. And I was just like, this is really rough. Like, this is a really tough time. But in the journal entry, I wrote that, it doesn't make sense now, but I'm just going to keep on pushing until it all makes sense. And so 12 years later, yeah, it sounds like a long time, but you know how time goes by so fast. You think about last year or 10 years ago, the past decade, and you're like, ooh, time flew, right? And so I shared that story, and that was part of my brand. That was part of my authenticity. That was part of the words that I shared with you all. And so one thing that Justin talked about is like, how do you, expand your reach and all that good stuff? Well, I was showing up in the gym when nobody else was checking for me, right? Before I was even on stages and before I was, asked to, speak at different places, I was in my room writing down my messages, writing down my stories, thinking about what I want to do when I, am not in obscurity anymore. And so what I could say for you is prepare today like you'll be on stage tomorrow. You know what I mean? Because the time is going to come, but the question is, are you going to be ready? And for me, my biggest fear was that I would be elevated and I would get a microphone and the world would be the audience, and I would not have anything valuable to say. And so over the years, I've been working on messages. I have literally, it feels like I visualized all the things that are happening right now before they happened. And so I was very much preparing for it. So it doesn't feel like, oh, this is crazy that it's happened. In some ways, it kind of feels like, oh, it's finally happening, right? Because I've been preparing mentally. So I think that's really big is, we're talking about filling a void, offering value. We're talking about just being consistent, right? Some people may see me now and they're like, oh, you're an overnight success. Well, what I've often heard people say, like Kevin Hart has said, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And many other successful people say that. And I am a living witness. It really does take about 10 years for you to get that traction where other people will see you. And they're like, oh, you killing it. You lit. And it's like, yeah, well, I've been doing this for a long time. It's about time that something happens, right? So I think committing to the process and understanding that it's really not about the destination, it really is about the journey, because all of the adversity, every obstacle I faced along the path, it gave me the tools I needed to be where I am today. And so when I think about, let's say that you're in first grade, right? You don't want to move from first grade to 12th grade because that's going to be a very uncomfortable transition for you. You need second, third, fourth, and all the milestones in between. You need all of that so that you can be successful in the 12th grade. So I would say just take the journey in stride. I still have obstacles and there's adversity that I'm facing today, but I know that it's all going to serve a purpose, even if I don't understand what that purpose is at this very moment.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Thank you, Justin. I just want to I'm just taking a look at the notes that I shared with you all as you all were sharing, to just get a bit more feedback about what we might dive into next, what might be most useful for folks.
Leah, what was the one that you said you were interested in hearing?
I had kind of said like about harnessing your passion, which she's kind of talked about too, like connecting your passion and skills to like a need in the world. Yeah.
And I mean, just to kind of go on and talk a little bit about the podcast, because I know we chatted about this briefly. So last year was the 7-year mark for the Mocha Girls Pit Stop blog. And I ended up retiring the blog because I started a podcast with my co-host last year. And the podcast, I realized that it sort of took on the same type of purpose that the blog had, a little different because folks tend to listen to podcasts a bit more than they might read a blog post in my experience. And so I retired the blog because I felt like it was a little redundant. And also I think that it's important for us to realize that we do evolve over time. And the thing that I was sort of in conflict with when I was trying to decide what to do with the blog is, am I holding on to this just because I don't want to say that I let it go, just because I don't want to say that I failed or because I quit? And the way I looked at it was, it's not really quitting, it's more so making a transition, right? So I transitioned from that into another way to serve my purpose, which is the Her Space podcast. And the cool thing about the podcast is that, the blog, I was doing that blog for 7 years, y'all. And it just seems like we had slow, very incremental growth. but it never really blew up the way I intended. And so with the podcast, I didn't really set any big goals, so to speak. The goal with the podcast was just to create a safe space where Black women can let their hair down and talk about the things that we struggle with that many people may not understand. Bless you. That other people may not understand. And so we created that.
Could you hear me? Oh, you just
no,
saw
I just
it.
saw
You
you
didn't
like,
hear me.
I just, it's like, oh, that sounds like a good one. And so we created the podcast to be that space. And it's been about a year and a half, the podcast has almost a 500,000 downloads, and we're on track to hit 1 million this year. And the crazy thing about it is we did not set out to like get high numbers or to, interview the leading experts in different topics. Like we just really wanted to create a space. And so I think that when you lean into your why and kind of try to leave the numbers alone, because that stuff is going to come, I'm telling you it will. But when you lean into that why and you lean into helping people, I mean, the reviews that we have for our podcast, I mean, they literally bring me to tears when I read them oftentimes. I think we have about 400, last time I checked, about 414 reviews and a 4.8 rating. And the women and sometimes the men too that comment, I mean, they're like, this is life-changing. I needed this. Keep doing this. And it's so inspiring for us because now we know that we can be inspired to continue to do the work. So I think really leaning into that why that we talked about before as well, and that need is going to be super key when it comes to, just having a greater reach and making an impact in the world. I'm going to take a quick pause. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. What advice would you give people who have that product or that service and they're just really having a really hard time getting it off the ground? Are there any quick things they could be doing right now to kind of boost it? It might not be, again, an overnight success, but is there any quick things that they could do?
There are a few things. I'm going to write them down so I don't forget them. Okay. The first one is going to be to ask for advice or feedback. Like if you have an audience and you have people that have purchased your product or services, go to them and ask them about why they purchased it. Ask them about what you can do to improve it and be open to feedback. I think that is one of the most important aspects of just success in general, in my experience at least, is being open to feedback. We can't let our ego get so big that when someone's trying to share insight or advice with us, we don't listen. And I want to give you a quick example and we're going to circle back around on this. So I have been speaking professionally, and I know Justin is an amazing speaker too. So I just want to shout you out, Justin. I remember when my husband first saw you speak and he was like, oh, Justin, he's about that life. He's amazing. And I was like, really? I need to see him. And we have your book as well. So yes, kudos to you, Justin. You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
So you're so welcome. So I've been speaking probably for about, I would say 16 years now, because I started when I was about 14 or so in church. And, my parents would force me to go up into, in front of the church, and I would have to speak, and I would hate it. I would be so angry, but I would do it because I didn't have a choice, right? I was voluntold to go up and speak. So whether it's Youth Sunday or doing announcements and stuff like that. And let me just tell you, I was the absolute worst speaker in the world. Every time I got up to speak, I would have a frog in my throat and I would be shaken. So if I usually always had a script because the script was my crutch. I was I can't go up there and just wing it. I need to have every single word written down. So I'd be up there like this. My hands would be shaking and it was just very bad. But what I learned over the years is that we have to fail forward, right? Failing isn't really failing. It's really more so learning, right? We're learning lessons. And so I began to keep on getting up there. And today I'm a lot more comfortable on stage. I still get butterflies, right? It still happens, but I'm a lot more comfortable and I do a better job. You too, right? It's yeah. I still, it's funny, even before we went live on the Zoom, I had the same feeling I get when I go on stage. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Even in the virtual world, I still have that same, but I
think it depends on who your audience is. I feel when it's new people, I get kind of butterflies. But if I'm in front of Westchester students and I do emceeing of basketball games, and there are thousands of people that are in those states, I'm not nervous at all because these are people that I see on the streets walking by. If I mess up, they don't know. But if I'm flying somewhere and I'm going to go speak on a big stage and none of these people know me, it tends to have a little bit more apprehension and a little bit more anxiety.
Yes, I would agree with you. Spot on there. And it takes me back to the reason I told the story is because about maybe at this point, 6 or 7 years ago, I was at a conference and my team, I work with a team called Cool Speak, and we were facilitating this conference and I had a session and I went up there and I bombed it. When I say bombed it, like it was bad, not just bad, it was bad. Okay. It was to the point, I remember calling my husband, I think we were engaged at the time, and I called him, but I was like, yo, I just might have to fly home, even though I'm supposed to go on stage again tomorrow. Like, it was just so bad. And my mentor, he pulled me aside and he was like, okay, that was a rough one. Now you have another session tomorrow. So let's talk about what we can do better. And that's the thing. Even to this day, when I get feedback from students, when they fill out surveys after I speak, even to this day, I will read every single point of feedback. Sometimes you'll get the feedback where it's just like, okay, you were just having a bad day, you know, where they're just like, Terri stink or something just random. And you're like, okay, I'm going to keep that feedback over here, right? We have to be very discerning when it comes to the feedback that we receive. So that feedback where it's like, oh, she stink. I'm like, okay, I wasn't even next to you. I'm gonna put that over here. But then sometimes there's valuable feedback that you can actually use. And so always be open to feedback. I don't care where you, and we're circling back around on Justin's question about what can a brand do today if they have something and it hasn't quite taken off. Get feedback. Talk to people that are your customers, but also talk to people who are where you want to be to get feedback on how you can improve your process. I am always trying to improve. I never think that I've arrived. I will still read a book today, even though people will see me on stage and like, oh, you're a great speaker, you do this. That's cool. How can I get better? Right? That's my question. So I'll still read a book today about how to become a better speaker, how to become a better communicator. So one, I would say be open to all feedback, right? Number two, this is kind of like a point A under feedback, is be coachable. You should always be in a learning environment. You should always be sitting under the tutelage of someone that can help you get to the next level. I like to always think about one of my amazing mentors in my head, Lisa Nichols, always says you should surround yourself with people that you can lift up, but also people that lift you up and make you stand on your tippy toes, right? So there should always be that balance and exchange of energy. So I would say be coachable, and then you should always be investing in yourself. If you've been doing the same thing over and over and it isn't working, it's time to try something different. So whether you need to invest in a coach, I've invested in so many coaches, so many online courses. Yes, you want to make sure that they're reputable and they have a good reputation and they get results for their customers and clients, but you want to invest in yourself. You can't expect people to invest in your business if you don't invest in yourself. I'm gonna say that one more time for the people in the back, okay? You can't expect people to invest in you or your business if you don't invest in yourself. If you're not even gonna put a penny into your personal development, how you want us to support your cause? You post on social media, support me, y'all, I just started a business. Well, have you supported yourself yet?
Right.
Right?
I'm watching the last, I mean, it's definitely connected, but I'm watching the Last Dance documentary with Michael Jordan on ESPN, a 10-part series. And I believe one of the things he said right before it went to the credits, and it was like, because you're getting ready, because this Sunday is the last 2 parts of this documentary. He said, there's no way that I can get down there. You're paying your hard-earned money to see me play for 3 hours. And I didn't put more than 3 hours into preparing for you to come see me.
Yes.
That just stuck with me. Like, you're paying your money to come see me, so the least I could do is show up to the best of my ability.
Come on now. Right? Yes, it's spot on. And I'm watching it too. I've watched a few snippets with my husband. It's so inspiring. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's showing a lot of stuff. Some parts I'm inspired. Some other parts I'm like, yo, Jordan, you were like this?
Right.
Like,
yeah. The last episode we saw, I was just like, oh, was he like that? Okay, I didn't know that. But yeah, I'm with you.
But I also heard today, and this isn't a page know the word, but someone said another person's and they said a-hole is another person's leader. So for some people, they looked at that leadership like the ends justified the means. At the end, they got 6 rings and 2 3-time back-to-back championships, which has never been done ever again. So the ends justified the means. Were people mad and upset? Yeah. I mean, they said one of the players, when he didn't perform well, that Jordan wouldn't let him eat his meal. I mean, at the end, like that, we're looking at that from that's crazy.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at sports commentators, the owners, all of the stakeholders, they were like, okay, he didn't have a meal that night, but at the end, they got that championship. So am I saying that those leadership qualities are ones that we should be doing? Absolutely not. You know,
Right.
People who are trying to be the loudest in the room and the smartest in the room and the most dictatorship in the room are probably not leaders that we should be following.
Exactly.
Even though some of us do follow those leaders.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's all in perspective of how you look at it.
Yep, it's all in perspective. And one of the quotes that I really lean into, this last couple of years for me has been such a pivotal time because the first, I would say, 17, 18, maybe first 20 some years of my life were so tough. They were so hard. And now I'm taking this turn where it's all making sense for me. And I realize that some people may be in a space where they're like, well, it don't make sense for me over here. You know what I mean? And so what I would want to say is, don't confuse who you are with where you are in your journey. Like you may be over here in this dark spot right now, but over here, you can't see this over here yet, but it's all going to make sense right now. And I know sometimes that can be a very difficult thing to grasp and to understand, especially when you're going through a difficult time. Like when I talked about the post I shared online today, I mean, I grew up in an abusive household, right? I was verbally and physically abused. I hated myself for a long time, right? And I was always in conflict because people would see me out in the world and say, oh, you seem so nice and you're this and you're that. And they would say these things, but I had no attachment to it because I felt so low about myself. But now that I've continued to live, right? Because I, wanted to be out of this world and wanted to hurt myself over the course of the journey at some point because it was so tough. But because I began to continue to push and move forward, now I'm like, oh, so this thing that I went through, that developed this skill in me, right? And so now I can be a light to the world because I've healed myself. And I know this is kind of like, this isn't necessarily branding in that regard, but this is more so specific to my brand as far as how it all comes full circle. But we have to keep pushing. And I just want to go ahead and share my screen really quickly. We have to keep pushing so that we can get to the other side, because you really never know how close you are to the miracle, right? If you give up. Like I remember when I was 18 years old and I was at one of the most, it was a very challenging time for me. And I was in school, I was at Kutztown University, and I gotten a bill from the school saying that I owed $10,000. Now I barely had $10 in my bank account at the time. And I was just like, well, my education is my ticket out of poverty. How am I going to move on if I don't have school? Like, what am I going to do? Right. My mom was in and out of jail. I was driving home every weekend to take care of my younger siblings. And I got to a place where I was like, you know what? I was at home by myself one day and I was like, I literally can't take it. I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. And so I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to take my life. And so I decided, I was making my way to my mom's bathroom to take all the medicine in her cabinet. And I remember hearing a voice that sounded familiar. And so I ran back into my room because I'm like, where's that coming from? And I peeked out the window and I saw my little brother, TJ, running up to the house, screaming and yelling. And I remember seeing TJ. And in that moment of me bawling my eyes out, crying and being so sad, I kind of laughed because TJ, he was little. He kind of grew into his head these days, but he had a really big head and a small body. So it kind of looked like a lollipop running up to the house when I looked out the window. And I kind of chuckled to myself. And then I had a moment where I realized, you know what? I have a why for living. I have a reason to be here. And I felt like TJ, my siblings, really saved my life that day because one, his physical presence ended up coming into the house to stop me. But then also I realized that I have much more to live for, right? And if you can, Les Brown always says, if you can look up, you can get up, right? If you can just figure out, what is my why? Who's depending on me? What is the bigger reason, bigger than myself? You can really push through. And I say all that to say, at this point in my life, when I look back on those moments, it makes sense to me now. Like, oh, I needed to go through that because maybe I would have been an a-hole, right? If I didn't learn how to develop compassion and empathy and care for other people. And so I can honestly say that out of all the things that I've been through, and I've been through a lot, y'all, I'm in a place now where I don't regret anything, and everything that I went through, it built me up and it made me such a strong person and a person that has more empathy and that can make an impact on the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're just tuning in, we are here with Terri Lomax. She's been dropping so much knowledge, just so many gems, and helping us with trying to find your brand and you trying to make the most of your situation, overcoming adversity, and just truly finding those things that make you the best. Now, Terri, if people want to follow you online or, your social media handles or even your blog, how can people find you?
Yes, so I made it very easy for you to find me. You can find me pretty much on, like, what is it, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and what's the other one? There's another one I forgot.
Twitter, Facebook,
I think those
IG.
are those are the ones that I'm typically on, at Terri Lomax. So my first and last name, that's Terri with 2 R's and an I. And then you can also go to terrilomax.com and you can literally just click on my podcast link at the top. If you want to see the podcast, there's a blog link. If you want to book me for speaking, there's a speaking link. I put everything on terrilomax.com to make it easy for you to get
Special
all
shout
the
out
good
to
stuff.
Cool Speak as well for helping us to set
Cool
this
Speak.
up. So thank you, Cool Speak. We appreciate that as well. Now, Terri, what we've been doing with all of our speakers as they're in closing is we allow them to have the last word. So like anything that you would say that, I mean, and you've been dropping gems of knowledge on us all day, so it might be really hard for you to pick that one thing. But is there anything that you would want the students, if they were going to get anything out of this presentation, even though you have said a lot and have been really inspirational, what's that one thing that you want them to get as you are taking us out of here?
The one thing I would say is you are not defined by where you come from, what you look like, or what happened to you. You really have the ability to change the trajectory of your life if you want it to. So let go of the things that don't serve you and just move into your greatness because it's already in you. It's just a matter of you pulling it out and figuring out how it's going to look in the world.
Yes. Terri Lomax, thank you so much for joining us today. This was phenomenal. We hope to have you on campus. We're about to show the rest of our speakers that we have for this week. If you are interested in any of these, please make sure that you join. You are more than welcome. For those who are watching, if you just missed Terri, we have Chris Sabat at 5, an hour from now. He has done a lot of voices, primarily his work with Dragon Ball Z as well. Jaime Camille, obviously, you know him from Jane the Virgin and couple telenovelas. Leah, go ahead, give us a few, and then I'll take us out.
Yep. So Zach Gowen has a really inspiring story. He was a wrestler for the WWE. Danielle Fishel, best known as Topanga from Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World. Al Roker, who needs no introduction, but from the Today Show. And then Justin, take us out.
We got Joshua Triplett, y'all. I know you've seen him in a lot of different telecasts, so he's been in everything. Primarily, he's working with Cedric the Entertainer on CBS's show, The Neighbors. Sway in the Morning, MTV, needs no introduction. And then Cedric Yarbrough, you know him from Reno 911, which was just rebooted. He's also a couple of the voices on Aaron Magruder's The Boondocks, and he is, I'm going to have to look this up. I think it's called Policeman Meow Meow on BoJack Horseman. So if you watch BoJack, that's who he is on there. So thank you so much for all of you joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next speaker at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.